Chosen one, when they looked at you, they assumed time and pressure would erase you. They convinced themselves that silence would swallow your voice, that absence would fade your memory, and that you would simply vanish into the background like so many others before you. But what they did not understand is that destiny does not vanish. It does not dissolve into shadows, and it cannot be buried by the hands of envy or fear. They thought they had seen the end of you, but what they were really seeing was your preparation. While they whispered about your disappearance, you were gathering strength in quiet places, finding clarity in the stillness, and building a resilience they could never imagine. They mistook your silence as surrender, but silence was only the soil in which your future was planted. They underestimated the power of persistence. They thought that rejection would crush you, but rejection only redirected you to places more aligned with your calling. They believed betrayal would break you, but betrayal stripped away the false alliances that were weighing you down. They thought disappointment would cause you to disappear, but disappointment became your teacher, showing you how to stand without leaning on approval. Every act meant to weaken you only added to the foundation of your strength. What they intended for erasure became the reason you are more present than ever. They cannot grasp why your light continues to shine, but light born in the shadows cannot be dimmed. It only grows brighter. Look at how they celebrated when storms surrounded you, how they believed the rain would drown you. Yet storms are not your enemy. They are the water that nourishes seeds. Every storm that came against you only revealed the depth of your roots. And roots do not disappear when the winds rise. They hold tighter, they grow deeper, and they prepare for greater growth. They thought thunder would scare you into hiding, but thunder only announced the arrival of your resilience. They thought lightning would strike you down, but lightning only illuminated the truth. You were still standing, and your presence could not be erased. Even when they walked away, believing you would crumble without them, you discovered that their absence was not your ending, but your freedom. Alone, you uncovered strength you never needed to borrow from anyone else. Alone, you heard the quiet guidance that could never be drowned out by the noise of the crowd. Alone, you rose in ways that startled even you. Their absence did not erase you, it revealed you. They expected to find nothing where you once stood, but instead they found a presence that had multiplied, a voice that had grown stronger, and a light that refused to be hidden. They tried to write you off as finished, but endings are not decided by those who oppose you. Endings are decided by the one who created you. Every attempt they made to diminish you has now become the very evidence of your strength. You did not vanish. You did not fade. You did not disappear. Instead, you became more visible, more unshakable, and more undeniable than they ever thought possible. And now, as they watch, they must face the truth. Your disappearance was never written into your story. Your presence is permanent, and your rise is unstoppable. Chosen one, before we continue this journey, I need you to pause for a moment and open yourself to something powerful. This video is not just words carried by sound. It is an energy, a current flowing toward you, and if you allow it, it will move through your spirit and remind you of what has always been yours. That is why I ask you to stay until the very end, because at the conclusion, there are messages designed specifically to ignite something inside you. And when you reach that point, take a moment to write your most heartfelt wishes in the comments and place the number 777 beside them. That number is a vibration of alignment, a declaration that your spirit is synchronizing with divine timing. As you write, do not see it as a small act. See it as a seed being planted in the soil of the universe. Speak your desire into existence. Breathe life into it, and watch how the energy you release returns multiplied. Subscribe as well, not just for updates, but to remain connected to this current of strength and renewal. Each time you engage, You add your energy to a wave that reaches further than you can imagine. They believed your absence would prove they had won, but every time you appeared again, you became proof of something greater than their plans. They whispered about your disappearance because it gave them comfort to think they had erased you, yet the more they whispered, the more undeniable your presence became. What they never considered is that true strength does not fade when ignored. It sharpens, it matures, and it grows bolder in silence. They thought your light had been extinguished, but they didn't realize light can never be destroyed. It can only be hidden for a moment, waiting for the perfect time to break through. And when it does, it blinds those who doubted it, leaving them stunned that you still stand. Every obstacle they placed before you was meant to convince you that your journey had ended, but you transformed each obstacle into proof that your path was not determined by them. Their disbelief tried to chain your steps, but disbelief cannot bind one who has chosen to rise. You kept moving even when the ground was unsteady, even when their voices grew louder than your own thoughts, even when shadows tried to convince you that you were alone. Persistence became your language, and persistence speaks louder than envy, louder than hatred, louder than silence. Each time you refused to quit, you built a monument in defiance of their predictions. They thought you would vanish because they measured you by the limits they placed on themselves. They cannot understand resilience because they never had to live in the fire the way you did. They cannot understand endurance because they never walked alone through nights without comfort, carrying hope as their only light. They cannot understand strength because strength is born only in the places where giving up feels easier than standing. Yet you stood anyway. That is why your presence now unsettles them. It reveals what they lack, and it proves that their definitions of you were never true. The beauty of your story is that it was not shaped by their approval. You are not standing because they wanted you to. You are standing because you refused to disappear. You refused to let their silence erase your voice. You refused to let their absence erase your presence. And you refuse to let their disbelief erase your destiny. And now, you are not only here, you are undeniable. Chosen one, they thought time would work against you, that the longer you remained quiet, the easier it would be for them to forget your name. They assumed that distance would dissolve your presence, that silence would bury your influence, and that you would eventually fade into nothing more than a shadow. But time has never been your enemy. It has been your greatest ally. With every day that passed, you were not disappearing. You were developing. You were learning, growing, and preparing in the hidden places where no one was watching. They believed that delay meant defeat, but delay was only the soil of your preparation, the incubation of your strength. What looked like an absence was actually a gathering of power, and when you reappeared, you came back with a force that no one could ignore. They whispered that you were finished, but their whispers could not outlast your endurance. They waited for your absence to prove them right, but absence never defined you. Presence did, and your presence has returned in a way that overshadows every attempt to erase it. Their mistake was assuming that silence meant surrender, but silence was your shield, your strategy, your sanctuary. In the stillness, you found wisdom that noise could never provide. In the quiet, you built an inner foundation that storms could not shake. So when you stepped back into the light, you were not the same. You were stronger, sharper, and far more unshakable than they ever imagined. They wanted you forgotten, but instead, you became unforgettable. You became the example of resilience they could not deny, the contradiction to their every prediction. They said you would fade, but fading is not in your nature. You are etched into the fabric of destiny too deeply to be erased by human intentions. They wanted you erased from memory, but memory bends to the weight of truth. And the truth is that your existence carries meaning that cannot be denied. That is why, even in silence, you were not forgotten. The energy of who you are, the light that burns within you, cannot be hidden forever. Look at how they struggled when you re-emerged. Their shock was not just at your survival, but at your thriving. They thought you would crawl back, broken and diminished. But you walked back taller, brighter, and with a strength that unsettled their comfort. You are not only proof of endurance, you are proof that disappearance is an illusion when destiny is alive. They thought they had seen the last of you, but destiny is not undone by envy, and purpose is not erased by rejection. You have shown them that presence is not about being constantly visible, but about being undeniably permanent. Every attempt they made to silence you has backfired because now your voice carries more weight than it ever did before. Every scheme they used to erase you has failed because now your presence is a reminder that resilience is stronger than betrayal and persistence is stronger than opposition. You are here, not only as a survivor but as a beacon of what cannot be hidden, what cannot be erased, and what cannot disappear. They thought you were gone, but you were only gathering strength for a return they could never stop. Chosen one, they thought that by closing doors, they would lock you away forever. They thought opportunities would dry up, leaving you stranded in silence, invisible to the world. Yet they forgot that closed doors are not the end for those who carry destiny in their steps. Every door they shut became an opportunity for you to build your own, to carve a new path where none seemed to exist. They believed they had stripped you of access, but access was never theirs to control. They underestimated the way the universe bends for those who refuse to disappear. The more they tried to block you, the more unseen hands cleared the path ahead. Every barrier they placed only redirected you closer to where you truly belonged. They could not comprehend that disappearance is not defined by the absence of people, but by the absence of purpose, and your purpose has never left you. Purpose grows in silence. It thrives in obscurity, and it prepares itself in the hidden places where eyes cannot see. While they whispered about your fading, you were not fading. You were forming. Your spirit was being refined, your vision sharpened, your resilience fortified. When you stepped back into sight, you carried more weight than ever before, and they could not understand how someone they thought erased was still standing. Their confusion was proof of your resilience, proof that erasure is impossible when destiny holds your name. They wanted to remember you as someone who gave up, but you refused to play the part they wrote for you. Instead, you rewrote the script, turning their predictions into fuel. They called you finished, but their words became the foundation of your comeback. They mocked your stillness, not realizing that stillness was your preparation. They thought you had retreated in fear, but you were advancing in wisdom. They waited for your story to end, but the page never turned the way they imagined. Instead, your presence became louder, echoing in places their voices could never reach. Every time you appeared again, it was a reminder that resilience is stronger than ridicule. They thought you would vanish like smoke, but smoke dissipates because it lacks substance. And you are not smoke. You are fire, and fire does not disappear. It spreads. They cannot erase what is burning from within, because fire consumes everything placed against it. Their attempts to diminish you only added fuel, and the more they pushed, the brighter you burned. Your existence became proof that disappearance is not in your design. You were not made to vanish, you were made to endure. And now, as they look at you, they see what they never thought possible. You are still here, unbroken, unshaken, and unstoppable. You carry scars, yes, but those scars are not shame. They are strength. They remind the world that you endured what should have ended you. They remind your enemies that nothing they did was enough to erase you. They remind you that your presence is not a fragile accident, but a deliberate act of survival. They thought they had won, but your presence proves otherwise. You are the contradiction to their lies, the evidence that disappearance is not your fate, and the living testimony that you were always meant to remain. Chosen one, they believed your silence was proof that you had given up, but silence was the sanctuary where your strength was reborn. They mistook your quiet as emptiness, but within that quiet, you were constructing a resilience they could not destroy. They thought your absence meant defeat, but absence was your strategy, the space you needed to gather vision and clarity. What they did not realize is that absence does not mean disappearance. It means transformation. While they celebrated what they thought was your end, you were already in the process of becoming something greater than they ever imagined. They could not understand how the very storms that came against you became nourishment for your spirit. Where they saw setbacks, you found lessons. Where they saw endings, you discovered beginnings. They thought betrayal would break you, but betrayal was your teacher, showing you who was real and who was false. They thought rejection would silence you, but rejection taught you that your worth was never defined by their acceptance. They thought loss would leave you empty, but loss made space for gain. Each blow they aimed at you only pushed you deeper into the truth of your strength. They wanted you to vanish, but their very actions were sharpening your persistence. When they realized you were still here, they were forced to confront the reality that nothing they did was enough. Their weapons broke against your endurance. Their schemes unraveled against your patience, and their whispers faded against your persistence. You became proof that presence is not measured by applause, but by resilience. They thought your fire had burned out, but fire refuels itself when it is connected to purpose. Purpose does not vanish when ignored. It grows stronger in silence, waiting for the right time to ignite again. That is why they are unsettled now, because what they thought was gone stands stronger than ever. Your presence today is not an accident. It is the result of choosing not to vanish when everything else told you to. It is the result of standing when your legs were trembling, of breathing when the air felt heavy, of believing when evidence said otherwise. You are still here, not because the path was easy, but because you refused to surrender, and that refusal has become your victory. Every moment you persisted has turned into a monument of strength that cannot be erased. You are not a shadow hiding in the background. You are the flame burning at the center of the story, visible to everyone who once thought you would fade. And now, your very existence unsettles those who tried to erase you. They cannot look at you without being reminded of their failure. They cannot speak about you without acknowledging your resilience. They cannot deny that you are here, alive, unshaken, and stronger than before. You are the contradiction to their predictions, the proof that disappearance was never your fate. You were never meant to vanish. You were meant to rise. Chosen one, they thought their shadows were enough to cover your light, that if they ignored you long enough, the world would forget. But light does not vanish in the presence of shadows. It becomes more noticeable. The darker their opposition grew, the brighter your essence began to shine. They thought silence would swallow you whole, but silence only gave you space to listen to your own voice, to hear the rhythm of your own destiny calling you forward. They underestimated the power of what happens in hidden places. They believed obscurity meant defeat, but obscurity was the very cocoon where you were transformed. What they thought was an ending was really a metamorphosis. And when you emerged, you carried wings stronger than anything they could have predicted. Their mistake was thinking that absence meant weakness, but absence became your sanctuary, the secret ground where you built yourself piece by piece. In that space, you learned patience. You discovered that waiting is not wasted time, it is preparation. While they celebrated what they thought was your fading, you were collecting wisdom, endurance, and strength. You were learning to stand without needing their approval, to walk without needing their applause. And when you stepped back into sight, you were not the same person they remembered. You were unshakable, carrying a presence that silence had only magnified. They wanted you gone, but their very attempts to erase you made your return louder, undeniable, and unforgettable. They told themselves stories about your end, yet the only story that survived was the one you kept writing with your persistence. They convinced others you would not last, but your resilience outlived their rumors. They spread lies to bury your truth, but truth is not easily buried. It rises again and again until it cannot be denied. Their narratives fell apart because every time they looked at you, you were still here. And not just here, but thriving. You are the reminder that destiny cannot be erased by human intention. You are the contradiction to every lie they told about you. living proof that endurance is stronger than envy. Think about how many times they thought your silence was proof of defeat, yet silence became the stage for your comeback. They thought your scars would keep you hidden, but scars are not meant to be hidden. They are proof of battles endured and victories claimed. Your scars tell the story of survival. And survival is louder than any accusation. They looked for weakness in your wounds, but what they found was resilience. They thought your tears meant the end, but tears watered the soil of your growth. Every wound they inflicted became part of the story that now terrifies them, because it proves you are still here, despite everything they threw at you. And now, your presence is not fragile. It is powerful. It is the type of presence that unsettles those who wanted you gone, because it reveals that nothing they did was enough. They wanted to silence your voice, but your voice carries further now than it ever did before. They wanted to erase your steps, but your steps echo louder now than they ever imagined. They wanted your story to vanish, but your story has become a testimony others cling to when they are struggling. Your persistence has become hope for those who believe they cannot endure. You are no longer simply surviving. You are blazing a trail that others can follow. Your rise is not only about proving them wrong, it is about proving yourself right. You stayed when it was easier to quit. You stood when everything pushed you to fall. You breathed when the weight of the world pressed against your chest. And because you did, you are here, a living monument to resilience. They thought you would disappear, but disappearance was never written into your destiny. Presence, permanence, and purpose were. And as long as you continue, their shock will remain, because you are the reminder they can never erase. Chosen one, they imagined that by exhausting you, by weighing you down with betrayal, rejection, and whispers of doubt, you would eventually collapse into nothingness. They thought if they repeated the lie long enough, others would believe it, and you yourself would start to wear it like truth. But lies have short lifespans, and truth always outlasts them. The truth is that you never disappeared. The truth is that every attempt to erase you only made your presence more undeniable. And the truth is that their efforts, no matter how consistent or loud, were never powerful enough to undo what destiny had already sealed. They said you were finished, but you are still here. They said you had no future, but your steps continue forward. They said your voice was gone, but your words carry further now than ever before. What unsettles them most is not just that you survived, but that you grew. They expected to see a shadow of who you once were, but instead they found someone unrecognizable in strength, clarity, and resilience. They thought pain would reduce you, but pain expanded you. They thought silence would weaken you, but silence sharpened you. They thought time would erase you, but time only deepened your presence. You became proof that endurance is not passive. It is powerful. Every season where they thought you had disappeared was really a season of building, of gathering, of transforming into something they could never predict. Look at how persistence changed the narrative. Every time you showed up again, you contradicted the expectations they clung to. Your very presence became a rebuke to their lies, a reminder that resilience cannot be silenced. They could not control your story because your story was never theirs to control. They thought of themselves as authors, writing your ending in ink that would last forever. But they were only scribbling on the surface while destiny wrote deeper beneath the page. And destiny does not vanish. Destiny does not erase itself because others cannot handle its weight. You are still here because you were meant to be here. They can no longer deny what stands before them. You are not fragile. You are not fading. You are not temporary. You are a presence that lasts, a light that continues to shine, and a voice that continues to speak. And in that persistence, you have become something more than just a survivor. You have become an example. Others look at you and see that vanishing is not the only option, that standing is possible even when the world tries to knock you down. You are living proof that presence is a choice, and you chose not to disappear. Their disbelief now is louder than their mockery once was. They cannot understand how you remain, how you continue, how you rise. But it is not for them to understand. It is only for you to embody. And you embody it with every breath, every step, every word. You are still here, and every day you remain is a victory. They wanted your absence to be the proof of their success, but your presence has become the proof of their failure. You did not disappear, and you never will. Chosen one, they thought their final act against you would seal your disappearance, that the weight of everything you carried would finally crush you into silence. They convinced themselves that no one could withstand what you endured, that no voice could survive the storm you faced, and that no flame could continue to burn after being drenched in betrayal and rejection. But here you are, still present, still rising, still defying the expectations they built their confidence upon. You are the contradiction to their every prediction, the proof that disappearance was never your destiny. Instead, your presence is louder than ever, echoing in ways that cannot be silenced. They cannot comprehend how you managed to continue, how you found the strength to walk forward when so much was placed on your shoulders. Yet the truth is that strength is not born in ease. It is born in the fires of resistance. They thought the fire would consume you, but the fire refined you. They thought the shadows would cover you, but shadows only revealed how bright your light was. They thought silence would bury you, but silence birthed a clarity they could never take from you. Every tool they used against you became the very tool that built you, and every trap they set became the stepping stone that lifted you higher. Now, when they look at you, they see more than survival. They see transformation. They see the one they tried to erase walking taller than ever, speaking louder than before, living freer than they believed possible. They thought their absence would leave you broken, but their absence gave you independence. They thought their betrayal would poison you, but it purified your vision. They thought their rejection would paralyze you, but it propelled you. Each wound they left became a reminder of your resilience, a mark that says, "I am still here, and nothing you did could stop me." Your story was never about vanishing. It was about enduring. Endurance is what carried you through nights of silence, through seasons of being misunderstood, through storms that tested the very foundation of who you are. And because you endured, your presence now carries a weight it never carried before. You are not just here. You are unshakable. You are not just visible. You are undeniable. And your very existence is a message to those who once whispered about your disappearance, that no matter how much they plotted, they could not erase what destiny preserved. Chosen one, this is not only the conclusion of what they thought was your end, it is the beginning of something greater than you have ever known. The fact that you are still standing is proof that nothing they did was enough. And as you move forward, let your presence be your victory, let your resilience be your answer, and let your rise be the final word. They thought you would disappear, but you didn't. You are still here, and you are stronger than ever. Your presence is eternal, your rise is unstoppable, and your destiny is untouchable. Think about it. Every time they believed you were gone, you showed up again stronger, brighter, louder. Every time they told themselves you had faded, your presence reminded them that you were still here, more visible than before. You are the storm they could not predict, the fire they could not extinguish, the light they could not cover. They will have to live with the truth that their efforts did not erase you. They built the foundation for your rise. Your story is no longer just yours. It is a mirror for those who are walking through their own shadows, proof that disappearance is never the final word. Presence, resilience, and destiny always prevail. So walk forward now with certainty. Do not shrink to make them comfortable, and do not silence yourself to soothe their fears. You are here to stand, to shine, to inspire. Every scar on your body, every tear you once shed, every silent night you endured. They are not signs of defeat, but reminders of victories claimed. Your persistence is the reason you stand where you do now, and your persistence will carry you further still. Let the world see that you remain. You did not disappear, and you never will, because your destiny is permanent, and your rise is eternal.